started? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Happy Friday. All right, so my name is, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. My name is Emily Gottielb, and I work at the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, which is in Pacific Grove. Has anyone ever been there before? Yeah? We got a big whale in front. Yeah? Well, here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the museum, and then I'm going to tell you about this program that we run out of the museum called Limpet. And there's an opportunity there for students to do a science fair project relating to sand crabs. So we'll talk about sand crabs too. All right, so here's a little bit about the museum where I work. Here's a picture of the outside. This is Sandy the whale. Pretty nice, huh? So we're all about inspiring people to get outdoors and sort of explore their natural environments. And the cool thing about this museum is that it's free to Monterey County residents. So if you ever want to come by, you can come in for free with your families. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this program called Limpet. Who's heard of the Limpets program before? Anybody? A few hands, okay. So Limpet is an acronym, which means that each letter stands for something. So what it stands for is Long-Term Monitoring Program and Experiential Training for Students. So if we break that down, what we're talking about here is this long, ongoing scientific study, and the study tracks the ecosystem. So we go out and we look at sandy beach ecosystems and rocky intertidal ecosystems, so these areas that are close to the ocean. And the program is really all about teaching students how to collect scientific data. So it's all about students getting out there collecting information. And one of the species that we study with the Limpets program is the sand crab. The Pacific mole crab is another word for this. Has anyone seen this animal before? Yeah? Okay. Where does the sand crab live? In the sand. Appropriately named, right? All right, so here's our sand crab. Okay, so who can tell me, if we're looking at this sand crab, which side is the head? Is it the right side or the left side? Who thinks it's the left side? So this side. Oh, wait, I have a... Who thinks it's this side over here? Okay, what's your evidence? Why do you think that this is the head here? Nope, nope. Did you say the right side? No. Who thought that this is the head? Yeah. Why do you think that's the head, Mr. Morona?
Because you can see the eyes and
Yeah, we got some eye stalks sticking up there, okay? So here's a closer look at the eye stalk. Sand crabs usually live in the sand, kind of buried, their entire bodies are buried in the sand, and they stick their eye stalks up above the sand so they can see. Like this. So here's the sand crab buried in the sand. Here are the eye stalks, right there. What else is sticking up above the sand? Yeah. They're not the hands, but they kind of use them like hands to grab things. What do you think they're called? Yeah. Yeah, those are the antennae, absolutely. So these are the antennae that you can see right here. So sand crabs actually have two sets of antennae. So here you can see the antenna a little bit better. They have these little short antennae called primary antenna, and then they have these really long antennae called secondary antenna. So what do you think they're using their antenna for? Yeah. To grab food, exactly. Yeah. So they grab food with their secondary antenna. They use their primary antenna for something else. Does anyone want to guess what that might be? Something that all animals have to do. Yeah. Good guess. It's not smelling. It's actually breathing. I heard somebody say it. Did you say it? Okay. So they use those primary antennae to get oxygen out of the water. So they're like fish. They breathe oxygen that's in the water. All right, so another body part, another main body part that the sand crab has is a carapace. So this is the back shell of the sand crab's body. It's kind of like the sand crab's shield or like its helmet. It's extra protection for the sand crab. It has this hard exoskeleton. And then as it grows, it molts. So it splits out of its exoskeleton and it gets bigger, and then it grows a bigger exoskeleton. So the size of the carapace gives us an idea of how old the sand crab is, how long it's been alive. And then we've got the telson. So this is the telson here. It's the sand crab's tail. And the sand crab keeps its tail tucked up underneath its body like this, like a... Why do you think it keeps its tail tucked up under its body? What do you think? Anyone have a guess? Wild guesses are appreciated. Yeah. Okay, so it's a little protection so it doesn't get stepped on. That's true. And can anyone think of another reason why? So it's got this hard tail and it's sort of holding it under. Yeah. Do you have your hand up? What about if the sand crab had eggs? Where do you think the eggs would be? Yeah. It protects the eggs, exactly. So the eggs would actually be under the telson. So it's a little bit of extra protection for the sand crab's body. And if it was a female sand crab, it's a way that she could protect her eggs. Yeah. Yeah, it protects the sand crab's stomach too, like all those vital organs, like the stomach and the heart that are underneath there. Good one. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the life cycle of a sand crab. Here is a female sand crab with eggs. How many eggs do you think we're looking at there? Yeah, in the back. 2 million? 3 million? A little bit less than 3 million. Yeah. Less than 1 million. More than 200. Yeah, in the back. More than 1,000. Yeah. Say it again. More than 500. So somewhere in the thousands. Yeah. More than 6,000. 500. About 500,000. They can hold on to about 500,000 eggs. So they've got all of these eggs. They hold on to them in the clutch right here. So the female produces that many eggs each month. She can produce all these thousands and thousands of eggs. Now, why do you think a female sand crab will go through the trouble of producing so many eggs? What do you think? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those will survive, right? Not all of them are going to survive, but some of them will. Yeah. Awesome. So those eggs, the female's going to release the eggs, and then she's going to hold on to them for about a month while they develop. So they're these bright orange eggs. And then once the eggs hatch, the sand crabs, the next stage of their life is the larva stage. Does anyone know another animal that has a larva stage? Yeah. Caterpillars, right? They turn into butterflies. Yeah. Say it one more time. Oh, tadpoles? Okay. And yeah, so a lot of different insects, some vertebrates have larva stages. So the sand crab larvae are planktonic, and that word might be familiar to some people. Has anyone heard the term plankton before? Yeah? From SpongeBob, probably? So what does plankton do in the ocean? It sort of drifts around, right? So for 4 or 5 months, these sand crab larvae are drifting around the ocean. They're just plankton, they're floating. So if they survive through that stage, so if they don't get eaten by a whale or a fish while they're out in the ocean, they'll get washed back up onto the beach eventually. And at that stage, when they wash back up onto the beach, we call them recruits. So these are the little baby sand crabs that wash up onto the beach. And we get lots and lots of them. We can get like hundreds in a handful sometimes in the springtime. And then they grow up. They live for about 2 or 3 years. And they hang out on that beach for the rest of their life. And that's where they live and where they feed. That's where they get their food. Yeah? Any questions? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what they eat. And this is going to tie into the potential science fair project, okay? So sand crabs like to eat different types of plankton. Does anyone know the two types of plankton that are out there? There's plankton that's like animals, so that's zooplankton. And then there's plankton that's like plants. Does anyone know what that one's called? Phytoplankton, yeah. All right, so they like to eat plankton. That's their favorite food. Probably their second favorite food is detritus. That's dead, decaying matter. So animals or plants that have died in the ocean, it's this sort of nutrient-rich matter that floats around in the ocean. But while they're eating, so while they're catching food with their antenna, they're also catching other things besides their food. So sometimes they catch microplastics. What do you think a microplastic is? Trash, I heard someone say. What else? Yeah.
They can fight with other enemies.
Okay, yeah. So they're to competing for food.
So they're fighting with another enemy.
They don't. Well, let's see. They don't really fight with other crabs. They're able to live next to each other. So we'll actually find them at the beach right next to each other. That's a really good question. They're not very territorial, so they're kind of happy to live right next to each other at the beach. So microplastics are trash. They're little teeny tiny pieces of plastic or debris. And a lot of times microplastics in the ocean that are floating around the ocean actually come from our clothing. How do you think they get from our clothing out to the ocean, these little fibers? Yeah, in the back. When something gets ripped? Yeah, that's one way that it could happen. Yeah. When somebody litters, absolutely, and the litter gets broken down into smaller and smaller pieces, that's another way that microplastic gets in the ocean. Yeah. Okay, so maybe when you're swimming, the little fibers coming off of your clothes then? Yeah. When you do laundry, that's a big one. So when you do laundry, little fibers come off, when you clean out the dust lint in the dryer, some of that gets washed out into the ocean too. So there are all these different ways that tiny pieces of plastic can get in the ocean. And as the sand crabs are feeding, they don't really get to pick and choose what they're getting, so sometimes they can eat these microplastics. And then another thing that they can eat while they're feeding are parasite eggs. This little parasite that floats around in the ocean. Can anybody tell me what a parasite is? Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of bad stuff. It's bad for whoever's got the parasite, right? Anyone else know anything about parasites? So parasites are living things that have to live in or on a host. So it's usually an animal that lives inside another animal and kind of feeds off that animal's food or feeds off that animal's blood, right? So you can think of a few different types of parasites, like ticks are parasites. Tapeworms are a type of parasite. So they're animals that are living on or in other animals. So these parasite eggs also float around in the ocean, and sometimes sand crabs eat them. So sand crabs are filter feeders, as I mentioned, so they're using those long antennae, and they're waving their antennae around in the ocean as the water comes over them, and that's how they catch their food. So we can watch a video of that right here. There they go. Pretty cool, huh? So you can see with this one in the front, it was kind of bringing its antenna down. Its mouth is right there underneath its body. All right, so then what eats sand crabs? Birds eat sand crabs. Yeah, what else? Yeah. So whales might eat sand crabs when they're planktonic larvae, so when they're floating around in the ocean. Once they're up on the beach, though, the whales probably can't catch them, but that's a good one. Yeah. The sand crabs can eat little tiny plants, but what else eats the sand crab? Yeah. Wait, one more time.
They fight.
The sand crabs don't have any claws to defend themselves, so they just have to kind of hope that their shell is tough enough. Yeah. Birds eat sand crabs. How about anything that's swimming around in the ocean? You might like that. Yeah. Say it one more time. Little animals. Yeah, that's what the sand crabs eat, definitely.
He lives in
I heard somebody say otters too. Who said otters? Yeah, otters like to eat sand crabs. So the sand crabs are eating these little plants, these little tiny animals, and then otters eat the sand crabs, birds eat the sand crabs, and then also fish like to eat the sand crabs. So whatever is in the sand crab's stomach, that then gets into the otter's stomach, or the shorebird's stomach, or the fish's stomach. Am I too close?
You can stand like right in the middle.
Right here. Oh. There we go. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit more about these parasites that the sand crabs can eat. So this is a parasite. It's called acanthocephalon. Can everyone try and say that? Let me hear everybody say it on the count of 3. Acanthocephalon. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Okay, so that's a big fancy word for spiny-headed worm. That's what this is. This is a spiny head right here. That's the acanthocephalon. Okay? So the sand crabs, the parasite eggs float around in the ocean, and then as the sand crab's filter feeding, with what body part does it filter feed with? With the antenna. So it filter feeds with its antenna, and if the eggs get inside the sand crab's stomach, and they just kind of sit there, and then when the sand crab gets eaten by something, by what might eat the sand crab? What did we just talk about? Yeah. Otter might eat the sand crab, or what else? Or a fish, or a bird, right? So the sand crab gets eaten by something, and then the acanthocephalon egg hatches inside the otter's stomach, or inside the bird's stomach. So here's what the egg looks like inside the sand crab. A little bit gross, I know, but it's kind of cool too. This is how tiny they are. Look at that. They're just these little tiny little eggs. All right, so here's the dead end host. So once the otter eats the sand crab and has these acanthocephalon inside its intestines or inside its stomach, it can make the otter sick. So the otter's not getting as much food because the acanthocephalon is eating some of the otter's food, and it can also cause infection. So these little holes that it pokes into the sea otter's intestines can cause infection. Here's some of the other predators. All right, this next picture is a little bit gross. It is a picture of bird intestines. So if you don't want to see bird intestines, shield your eyes. Oh wait, not yet. All right, so these are the bird intestines. Told you it's a little bit gross. So these are the acanthocephalon. The head is sort of burrowed in the intestinal wall. And it's burrowed in there. It's hanging onto the intestines and catching food. Gross, right? So, to bring it all back and talk about what you as scientists can do to study the sand crabs and the parasites that they might have in their gut, the project that I'm sort of proposing for you is to actually look at some sand crabs. So some of the students from El Salvador are going to go out to the beach and be participating in the limpet monitoring program. And maybe while they're out there, they could collect some sand crabs and bring them back into the school. And then if somebody is, if a group of you are interested in working on this as a project, you can actually dissect the sand crabs. So here's a picture of the dissection. It's very easy to do. All you really need are scissors and gloves. And if you have a microscope to use, that's really cool too. You can actually dissect the sand crab and look inside the sand crab's stomach and see if it's eaten any parasite eggs. And then if you put the sand crab under a microscope, you can see if it's eaten any microplastics too. So you can actually see those plastic fibers. And so there are a couple of different projects that could come out of this. You could compare males versus female sand crabs, or you could compare big sand crabs to little sand crabs and see which sand crabs have more parasite eggs, if any. So here's just a quick picture of the dissection. So this is what you'd be getting yourself into. And something, a really neat kind of weird fact about these Acanthocephalon, the parasite, before you do the dissection, the sand crabs will be dead before you do the dissection. But when you find the Acanthocephalon in the sand crab's gut and you put it into some fresh water, the Acanthocephalon sticks its little neck out and you can actually see the spiny head. So it's pretty awesome. So here's just a quick video showing how we would collect the sand crabs out at the beach. So we use these cores and mesh bags to sort of sift through the sand in the swash zone where the sand crabs live. So students who come out to the beach with their class are going to be working in teams to collect sand crabs and see how many are living at the beach. And then we kind of sift through those bags like this, and you see how many we've got in there. There's some sand crabs down there. And that's how exciting it is when you find a sand crab. You'll be so happy. All right. So that is pretty much what I've got to share with you, and I would love to take questions now if anyone has any questions at all. Yes?
Why did you choose?
How many sand crabs do we see? That's a great question. So that really depends on the time of year, when we're sampling, and what beach we're going to. So typically we find the most sand crabs in the summertime, in the springtime and the summertime. That's when a lot of them are breeding and there are a lot of babies that are washing, so recruits are coming back up onto the beach. So sometimes in one core, so you saw the gray core they were using to take it, sometimes we can find 20, 30 sand crabs just in one little core. So a lot of sand crabs. Yeah. That's another great question you asked. How many parasites do sand crabs have? And that's sort of a question for this research project, right? Now, when we've done this in the past, we found an average of maybe 2 or 3 parasites per sand crab. But it might depend on how big the sand crabs are, whether they're male or female, what beach they're coming from. Good question. Yeah. How long has the investigation been going for? Great question. It's actually been going on for about 10 years. So we do the sand crab population survey with students, and that's been going on for about 10 years, and some classes go on to do the parasite investigation. Good question. Yeah. The sand crabs or the parasites? Okay, the sand crabs get to be about, let's see, probably the biggest one I've seen is like 4 centimeters, so about this big. This big. The female sand crabs tend to be bigger than the male sand crabs. They live a little bit longer because they're carrying eggs. And so because they live longer, they get a little bit bigger. Yeah. The parasites don't get much bigger than what we saw, that little tiny, here I can go back to the picture, the little tiny, where'd it go? Zoom back. Here we go. So they don't get much bigger than this. They sort of stay about this size. So you can see it right next to a ruler. So that's about 2 millimeters, 1 or 2 millimeters. They're pretty tiny. They don't grow a lot bigger than that. Yeah. Say one more time. Great question. How deep do you have to dig to find a sand crab? The sand crabs live right on the surface of the sand. So they stay right on the surface of the sand so that they can reach their antenna up and catch food. So you really only have to go a few inches down into the sand to find them. Great question. Yeah. Great question. So to tell if a sand crab is male or female, you flip the sand crab over, and remember I showed you that picture of the telson, the tail is tucked up underneath its body? So you lift up the tail fin, and it's flexible. It's just like your fingers. And you can see if the sand crab has eggs, it's a female. Or if it's a female without eggs, it has these little white lines that are called pleopods. And the pleopods are what the females use to hold on to the eggs. So females have pleopods and males do not have pleopods. So that's how you tell the difference between male and female. Yeah, over here. Oh, that's such a great question. I chose this job for a number of reasons. I love the ocean, and so I studied the ocean in school. I studied marine science, and I also love teaching. So I love working with students of all ages, and so this job was a really cool combination of being able to work by the ocean and study the ocean and get to bring students out to teach them about the ocean too. So that's why I chose it. Great question. Yeah? How much do they eat? I don't know the answer to that. That's a really good question. They're feeding pretty continually throughout the entire day. They're eating. They're eating and eating and eating as much food as they can get, probably. But I don't know how much. Good question. Okay.
What type of animals? What type of other animals do you study?
Oh, great question. So, yes, what other type of animals do they study? We study animals that live in tide pools, so animals that are live on the rocks that are right by the shore. So sea mussels and sea stars. Limpets are actually a type of animal. It's a type of snail that lives on the rocks, and other snails, and also algae. So algae are like plants that live by the ocean as well, or in the ocean. Question? Yeah. The greatest amount of sand crabs that I've ever found, I've gone out with groups in the summertime, and in one core, so just one little scoop of sand, we found, maybe 100 little tiny recruits, the little baby sand crabs, little tiny ones. There are hundreds of them. All right, how about in the back? Did you forget your question? Oh, I already answered it. Okay. Yes. What other animals have we studied for this long? So a lot of those tide pool animals that I mentioned, the sea mussels and the sea stars, we've been studying those also for, not me personally, but this program has been studying those for 10 years and more in some cases. Yeah. All right. Yes. I have been doing my job for about 3 years, this specific job. Yes. Say it one more time. Really? So about the sand crab shell? I heard. Yeah, so when, I think I'm hearing this right, you're asking when the sand crab dies, what happens to the shell? Is that right? Yeah? So when a sand crab dies, usually it dies because something eats it. So like a bird will eat the sand crab, and a bird will kind of eat the guts out of the sand crab and then leave the shell behind. So a lot of times when you're at the beach, or when I'm out at the beach with students, we'll see a lot of sand crab shells that have been washed up by the waves. And that also happens when the sand crabs grow and they molt out of their exoskeleton, their carapace. So their old exoskeleton stays up on the beach. So that's how we find the shells. Good question. Yes. What beaches? So we go to beaches all along the coast, all the way down to Carmel Beach, and then all the way up to Santa Cruz. So we find them. Sand crabs are really neat. They're actually found all along the west coast, so all the way down to Baja and all the way up through Oregon. You can find sand crabs all along the coast. So they're a really neat species in that way. Yeah. Oh, did you ask a question already? When is the project actually going to start? That's a good question. It could kind of start, well, pretty much anytime after the field trip. It could start right now. Yeah, so we can start as soon as possible. There's a lot of background research to do before actually doing the dissection. So if you're interested in this project, there's a lot of cool reading that you can do, kind of learning about the sand crabs. So that's how it would really start. And then kind of developing a question that you want to look into and sort of a plan for how to execute that question. Yeah. Yes. The sand crab babies. So remember that picture I showed you of the eggs? So the eggs are released, and then they'll hatch after about a month. So they're eggs for a month. Yeah. Good question. Okay, I think I probably have time for one or two more questions, maybe one. Yes. Your middle school. Well, that's a great question. That's a big question. So the question was, how is this investigation important to your middle school? So do you guys think the environment is important? Yeah. Do you think it's important? Do you think it's important to understand how different animals interact and how they're connected in the environment? And do you think that you students here, are you connected to the beach environment? Yeah, we're connected. We are definitely connected to the beach environment here. Remember we were talking about how microplastics from our clothes can potentially wash out into the ocean? That's one way we're connected, but then also in a positive way we're connected because we can go out and visit the beach, right? And this is an environment that we can participate in. So I think that the way that this project connects to you as middle school students is sort of learning about your connection your connection to the beach and the connection between all of the animals that are living at the beach too. Good question. Okay, one more. Yes. How long has it been under study? So for about 10 years. Yeah. Okay, I think we're about up for time. So it was really fun. Thank you so much for having me.